Hey, and welcome to episode 143. On today's episode of Meeple to Meeple, I'm turning up the amp to 11 and placing tokens on the board with someone who knows a thing or two about rhythm and rock and roll, the legendary Jackie Fox. She's joining me today to talk about her leap from pounding bass lines on stage to designing board game mechanics at the table. Her game Rock Hard 1977 doesn't just capture the spirit of a wild era in rock history, it puts you right in the middle. We'll chat about her time rocking on the stage, her creative process behind bringing backstage drama and tour life into a board game, and why the worlds of music and tabletop gaming have more in common than you might think. Get ready to explore the crossover of rock and roll storytelling with cardboard and acrylic. So tune your guitars, grab your meeples, as Jackie teaches me how to hit all the right notes on my tabletop. It's bass lines to board games. Jackie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
I am too. I was just at the World Series of Board Gaming. I
Yep.
got to do my first commentating on a board game.
How
And
was
it turns out
that?
it was interesting because I'd only ever played the game once.
It was raw, right? That's what
It
you.
was very raw.
So what is it like? I'm trying to imagine commentating for a board game, right? Like,
Right.
what it?
We went and interviewed the finalists for it was one of the ring matches. So that
Yeah,
was for winning an actual ring. And I mean, this is a certified diamond ring. These rings are crazy.
nice, nice.
And it was these four guys. I interviewed them beforehand, and I was doing this with Mike DeLisio from the Dice Tower. And he's asking all these questions about the game. And I'm saying, oh, where are you from? What do you do? What are you doing when you're done with the World Series? So I got to know them.
Yeah,
And most of my commentary, because Raw is not like you don't really have to explain to people what's going on. They're pulling tiles. So I was able to say who they were, whether they had previous rings, how many final tables they had been at. So I kind of stuck to that part. And then
I love
and then
that.
I got saved. I just got saved. I'll say that.
I can't imagine, like, I'm picturing like golf announcers. So Tim places his meeple on the first square to cut his wood for round one.
Well, I think I was supposed to do after the fact commentary for the Rock Hard final,
Yeah.
but I forgot, to be honest.
So, hey, what was that like? Just watching people competitively play your game.
Oh, you know what was awesome? They started the final at about 11:30 p.m. and the award ceremony was at 8 a.m. the following day.
Oh,
So I basically went out, introduced myself, asked them if they had any questions, and said, "Good, you guys stay up late and rock like true rockers. I'm going to bed. If you don't want to come at 8 in the morning, if y'all agree, you don't need to be there. I'll just go collect this, accept on your behalf, and you can sleep in." But you get your adrenaline is so pumping when you're competing.
right.
The guy who won, Justin, showed up, collected his $250 in cash, and got congratulated by me.
Wow. That's amazing. Hey, speaking of cash, I'm going to bounce around here. So, one of the features of your game is the actual paper money, right?
I cried when they told me they were putting paper money in my game because they
Right?
showed it to me over a Zoom, like over a Google Meet or a Zoom,
Yeah.
and it's like, "Oh, here's the money for your game." And I looked at it and I went, "You put paper money in my game?"
Yeah.
I was just like, "Yeah, it looks great."
Yep.
And I didn't get it until I got my first copy and opened it up, and I went, "Oh my God, this
Right?
is awesome."
I think that's everyone's experience when they first open it. We're like, paper money. Whoa.
Yeah, it's like it feels and looks like real money. And it takes
Yep.
people a while to realize that instead of the dead presidents, you've got the numbers. But there are serial numbers on it and a
Yep.
signature, and it really looks like money and it feels like money.
That is probably one of the biggest selling points because that's such a great touch. Um, and I love how there's like phone numbers written on it and lipstick kisses on it, things that you would really see
Yeah.
in the what do you call it, the nightlife.
Yeah, that was the paper money was all DeVere and Maple Foundry. I can't take
Okay.
credit for that, but I can take credit for suggesting they put the lipstick stains and the coffee stains and just making it look like grungy money from the 70s. And then they took that even further. They put phone numbers on it. So yeah, you have all kinds of little decorations on the bills.
It's so cool.
There are a lot of little touches in that game that various people contributed. And some of them are subtle and some of them are very in your face.
I would say that your game probably was not the dark horse of 2024. It was last year, right? It really took us by surprise. We were like, a rock and roll game. Okay. Didn't hear much about it. There was not a lot of lead up before it was released. And then we played it and just you took our breaths away. The experience is amazing.
Up until I think my game and to some extent Draft and Write Records, there really had not been thematic games about the music industry.
Right.
Lacrimosa in the classical area, which is what brought me to DeVere, was that game.
Oh, okay.
Yes, my great selling point was me, Mozart, natural fit. And DeVere went, yeah, sure, why not?
That's fantastic. I think one of the things when I am talking to people about your game, what I really enjoy is that it is a worker placement where you have one worker and that worker is you.
Yes.
So you have managed to, and I'm going to ask you to say more about like how you did this. You've managed to really make it immersive because you're the worker. You are doing all the things. How did that come about? Talk about your process.
The process was there were 5 people that showed up to my house for game day, and we wanted to play a strategy, something strategic that played at 5 players. And it was kind of like, oh, look, in the Year of the Dragon. What else is there on my shelf anyway? It was on the Year of the Dragon because this was pre-pandemic. Okay. And after they left, I think we found something else that somebody had brought that played at 5, and it was not very satisfying. And I went, there's a game missing from my shelf, and it's something that is strategic, but has the fun factor of an American game and will play up to 5 players. And it's like, why doesn't that game exist? It doesn't exist. I'm going to design it. And it just popped into my head that the music industry is a natural fit for a worker placement game.
Sure.
And apparently it popped into a few people's heads around the same time because I have seen other people who said they started their games around the same time, or at least before mine was released. And they came up with some really similar things, worker placement with some very similar spots because the music industry works in a particular way. Sure. And because it does, and because people kind of understand it from entertainment coverage, it makes learning a game a lot easier. And to make it even easier to learn, I divided my game into 3 phases. Daytime, what did I end up calling it?
Evening,
night, and after hours.
After hours, yeah.
So it was night and late night, which has got confusing for some people. So I went, well, we'll make it after hours. And because you only have to think about the actions that you can do in the day or that you can do anytime, once you get better, you do start looking ahead and you do start planning. But you can play it and you can remember it just because you're only dealing with a certain number of actions during each phase.
Right.
There's room to get better, but you can jump right in and it looks intimidating, but people pick it up after 2 rounds. And they're running it themselves.
So let me back up because I should have asked you this first. How did you get into modern board gaming originally? What was the first game, and do you have a favorite?
I love to be able to tell this story right now because I'm going to go a little bit backwards. But the first game I ever played at a modern meetup was Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space. And if you go to the BGG hotness, right, at least as of the time of this recording, I am right underneath Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space, which is like kind of a trippy moment because that was literally one of the managers in my game, and Junior Evans, is a combination of 2 people, including a friend of mine who I met playing that game because I was an alien and he was a human and I ate him. And now we're friends. And I just sort of love that that's how you make friends in board gaming. You eat somebody and then they become your lifelong friend.
Or you get eaten and become
lifelong
friends. Or you get
eaten.
Yeah.
And after you're done flipping the table, you exchange contact info and there you go. But I grew up playing games.
Okay.
Particularly, all the board games that were available when I was growing up, which weren't very good ones. They were like Sorry and and Original, Risk, and Monopoly, and the Game of Life, which basically taught me that there is no point in going to college. Although eventually I realized there was a point. But that was my takeaway. It's like, don't get married, don't have kids, don't go to college. So I joined a rock band.
So you joined a rock band.
I learned everything there was to learn from the Game of Life. And then I relearned it when I got older. But anyway, life happens. You join as one does, you join a rock band, you go out and tour the world. You realize there's more to the world. You go back to college, and somewhere along the way, games just drop out. And then by chance, if you're me, you see a friend post how much they'd like to get back into D&D. And that sounds like that's going to be fun, because I did that with my now ex-husband while I was in law school. Law school's pretty boring, to be honest. Right. So I married a game producer, not because law school was boring, just because they're not connected. But right. I was married to a video game producer, so we had every game system in existence. And then he also got me back into gaming, and largely into doing D&D and Shadowrun, which we did. We did first edition Shadowrun.
Wow. Now you're taking me back.
Shadowrun. And both so second edition D&D and first edition Shadowrun. And I had such a good time doing that. But then I became a lawyer, and you really don't have time to play games. But as I was starting to think about retiring and having a little more free time, I saw this post by my friend, and I went, yeah, this sounds fun. And I looked for a meetup close to my house, found one that said, come prepared with a level 9 character. And I was like, no, I think I need my hand held after all this time.
Right.
That sounds like that I'm not going to be able to do that. But I happened to see an ad for a board game meetup that was a block away from that. So I went, I'll just go drop into that and see what that's like. And insta-hook.
Nice.
I have been playing games ever since.
When was that? Do you remember what year?
I'm trying to figure out. I think it's somewhere between 8 and 10 years ago.
Okay. That's cool. So you have just demonstrated what I constantly say on the show, is that board games are all about this shared experience at the tabletop, and that the board game are the mechanics that happen in front of us. Because I don't know if you feel this way. I believe that in playing board games, it's a really intimate experience, right? That we share together with a common goal, whether that's to, cooperatively defeat the game or to compete against one another. But there's a level of intimacy that I find, and I have a tendency I can't turn off the podcast interviewer. So if I'm playing a game with you and I take my turn, and while I'm waiting, I'm like, so tell me where you're from, and how'd you and your husband meet? Or I can't help it.
Yeah, one of the things that's great, though, is that if you're not somebody that's comfortable with all that, you can just show up and play, and it eases social interactions. There are a lot of neurodivergent people that play board games.
Yes.
And in part, I think it's because the social experience is so geared around a shared love of something.
Yes.
That you're in a safe space, you're not having to talk a lot about yourself. And if you're with somebody like you're not having to steer the conversation.
Right.
So it's nice. But I'm also going to say it's not always an intimate shared experience, because I think there are great solo games out there. And that's a great exercise for your brains. Something I do every morning, which you may not have the luxury of. The first thing I do when I wake up after feeding the cats and getting dressed, but the first thing I do is sit down on my computer and I play a light little game. So I'll go to BGA and I'll just warm my day up with a little Ticket to Ride, or something like, something nice and easy, or I'll do the New York Times crossword puzzle, just something I can do by myself, kind of wake the brain up and get it ready to be there and present and doing whatever I need to do during the day.
Right. Yep. No, you're absolutely right. There are some fantastic solo board games out there. I've talked about this a lot. I've shared my personal story about why I don't play solo games, because I played a lot of board games that weren't, because there were no solo games when we were growing up. And so I didn't have a lot of friends, so I would play Monopoly or Risk or some of the other games you just mentioned, and I'd have to play them alone. And that baggage hasn't left. So when I sit at a table and I set up a board game, I have this block. I I get depressed.
Solo modes of more complex games are a
Yeah,
great way to learn the mechanisms and
it's
have an
true.
easier time teaching your friends,
It is
which is
true.
great. But also, I was in a Gloomhaven group, and I didn't choose the group carefully enough. Two of the guys were the type that when it wasn't their turn, they would just start talking loudly about college football while other people were trying to think. So the other person in my group dropped out because couldn't stand those two. I hung in there for a while, and finally I went, life's too short. And I just finished the entire campaign by myself. And that is
Wow.
that's a lot to run.
That's a lot.
But it got me into the mindset of solo gaming and solving a puzzle on my own. And I, I say I like gaming with other people more,
Mhm.
but sometimes I don't have the time or you just can't do it. So
Sure.
I will play games on my own or I'll go online. Derek Porter of BGG, I will curse him to this day because he tricked me into playing Blood on the Clock Tower, and I love it. I generally hate social deduction games, but
Mhm.
there's so much logical deduction in this one and plus social deduction.
Mhm.
And there's a great community of people that play this game. So I'm kind of hooked. And
Okay.
it's a nice change up, uses a different part of my brain than, say, a
Right.
Lacerda.
Very true.
Yeah, I think every part of your brain uses a different part of your brain than Lacerda. That
So,
man thinks
yeah,
outside the
yes.
box. Well, inside the box, but
Both, right?
yeah,
Both and.
outside the box is he puts outside the box inside the box.
Yes. Yes, he does.
It's
Well, I didn't mean for the conversation to go so heavy as a Lacerda, but
well that I mean I'm people are very surprised because my game is not particularly complex. It's about the same complexity as Wingspan or something in that
okay. Yeah.
area.
Okay.
Um, medium light, but I prefer medium heavy games. I like challenging myself. So, but I'm really an omni gamer.
I
I mean,
think though that your game it's so immersive. While I agree, it's light to medium weight. Yes, for sure. I have so much fun playing it, and I'm so immersed in it that everything else just falls away. And
and that
you
was
know,
what I did when I sat down. It was like, well, what experience do I want my players to have? Let me not think about mechanisms and well, the theme popped in there for because it's a natural. Then it
mhm,
was like, what experience do I want my players to have? Do I want them to have a super puzzly, try to work this out? Do I want more interaction? And it's like, I want you to feel like you are an up and coming musician trying to break out into the big time.
right,
And I intentionally simplified the game to it's really the basics that you needed for that experience, and then designed an expansion, which is finally going to come out sometime next year,
oh, that's
that
exciting.
adds another path to victory because the complaint from people who don't like the game is that it's too linear.
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, this is meant to be, if you're a strategy board gamer, you'll still enjoy playing this game. But you can take that person who's only willing to play light games because they're nervous
Yeah,
about playing strategy games. And you can say, this is a strategy game you will be able to play
right.
and you'll pick it up really quickly. And then I start adding in modules. So, for instance, in this game, writing songs is probably the least exciting part of things, which is an accurate reflection of life because sitting down and writing a song is a lot of work.
Yes.
In this game, it's weirdly represented by not being a lot of work. You just say, I'm going to write a song, and you turn your dial by one.
Yeah.
So I wanted to blow that little moment up into something a lot more interesting. So in the expansion, when you write a song, if you've got some life experience that you haven't written about before, you can use your experience to write a song of a particular style.
Oh,
So if you've hung out backstage and had a romantic experience, you can write a power ballad. You've been hanging out at Hoover's, you're writing an anthem,
right.
etc. And when you have those song styles, then it's something that you can go promote as a single when you hire indie promo. And you'll
Oh, okay.
flip that to show that you promoted that song and you'll move up the chart. So
That's
there's a
cool.
little area majority kind of thing going on, or I should say area control, because you want to be highest up on the chart. And if you do make it to number one, you also get some extra points for that.
That's cool. That's
So it's like a
exciting. And
fourth.
that's next year,
Yeah,
you think? Yeah.
it's sometime next year. I don't have an exact date.
That's
I've
okay.
seen the artwork. The artwork's great. There are 2 new characters, 2 new managers, new cards for every deck, and
Neat.
this chart that you get to climb. So I'm excited about that.
Is there the possibility in the future? Because the whole
Yes,
idea is that, yes. Okay. Well, there you go. There you go, folks. She said it. No. So we're all individuals. So we're individual musicians. Like, I'm thinking, how cool would it be that because we play different instruments to like,
yes,
we create a band ourselves, and then but we still have our own jobs, and we've got to get roadies and promote and record a demo tape and do all those things, but a little bit more cooperative.
yeah, it's Rock Hard Supergroup.
There you go.
Listen, if the idea is there,
Yeah.
I've got, but it's just a matter of time
Yeah.
and do I want to still be in the Rock Hard world versus all the other games that I want to create? But
Oh, sure.
I was thinking about how I would do that this morning and how, because if you're going to do a co-op, it's a great opportunity to make a solo game because co-ops play really well solo.
They
So
do.
how do you do that? And I was actually, I get my most creative ideas in the shower, naturally. So I was
Yep.
thinking about that as I was taking a shower this morning. How do you create a co-op, but make it so that it really works with 1 or 2 players as well? Like, what do you need to form a
That is
band?
important. That's important because my wife and I are both gamers, and which is another reason why I don't play solo, because I've got a partner so we can play a lot of games together. And anytime we go to a board game convention or board game cafe or whatever, it's like, how does this play at 2 players? That's always the question, right? That's what she asks right away.
Yeah, I mean, 2-player and then more players is always difficult because 2-player you've got give, take, and it's different than what's that 3rd or 4th or 5th player going to do.
Right.
And I will say it's probably the biggest challenge as a designer is to make something that works at 2 and is also good at multiplayer or vice versa.
Yeah.
So the answer for Rock Hard was to put in a dummy player. I didn't want to have to create a separate deck that you had to manage. And I just went, everybody is trying to do the same thing. You're going to have a player and you're going to know what they want to do on the next turn, which is, kind of what even with real life players. They're
Right.
not going to do something wild because there's nothing wild to do that you're going to be able to do. So you can see the dummy players' moves coming. They're never going to change their moves. And it works perfectly to simulate a 3rd player that's fighting for the same space as you are.
Okay. That's cool. So let's want to ask you about the characters in the game. So I guess my question is twofold. Are they actually people that from the industry that or are they just loosely based on people that you've encountered in the industry?
They're kind of mashups of people I know or types of people that I knew. Yeah, there's a little of this, a little of that, except for the promo character of me, which is me.
You.
Yeah,
Which
pretty
I
much.
missed out on. I have all the content. I even have the beautiful color folded space insert for the game. I don't have the promo of you. I'll have to work on that.
We'll discuss.
Mm-hmm.
Feel I do have Devere dug deep after the wildfires we had in Los Angeles last year. Devere did something really nice. I contacted them and said, hey, do you have any more promos lying anywhere that I can auction off for Los Angeles fire relief? And they sent me about a dozen. And I still have a couple of them. So, but they have been going for a lot of money, I will say, which is really nice. Good. I've been able to donate, I think, like $3,000 to fire relief and prevention. And, knock wood, we're still just going to be cleaning up last year's mess because it was bad. I had to evacuate one night and it was just like, aside from saving my cats that didn't really feel like cooperating,
right?
Because they're cats.
Yeah.
I had just enough time to take all my runaways files and throw them into the back of the car. So they're still sitting on my coffee table unorganized because I thought I've got to get these into better, easy shape for evacuating.
Right.
But I was like
Right.
pulling out old solo demos and things like that and going,
Mm,
this is irreplaceable stuff.
right. That's difficult. Growing up in Louisiana, I'm not unfamiliar with natural disasters, but I think, and having gone through more than my fair share of floods, I think I would prefer a fire.
No, you wouldn't.
So the reason why I say that is if my entire house and all my belongings are gone because they burned up in a flood, you have to sift through all your stuff and it's molding and it's full of mud
Yeah.
and it's water saturated and it's so heart-wrenching that I would almost rather, okay, disaster comes and it's gone and I have no choice but to start over again. That was how I ended up in Illinois. My wife and I were like, she's like, I can't do this anymore. We've had one too many floods. And was like, we're moving far away. So that's how we ended up in Illinois.
Yeah, well, you can't climb on the roof to get away from a fire.
That is true. That
So
is true. Yeah.
it's scary because your brain is
Yeah.
just there going, you're going to die.
Right.
You're going to die.
Right.
And
I am
yeah.
sorry you had to go through
Okay,
that.
we're going dark. We're going.
Yeah.
We're going.
Well, I didn't know it was going to go here, but hey.
Well, you know what? I will tell you that the losing my board game collection would be the least of it because at least you'd get the joy of going and buying new board games.
That's true. But your
'Cause
memories, so
this is true. But come on,
I
mean, there is a certain joy in getting a new board game and the new
Yes.
board game smell.
Yes.
It's kind of like new
Yes,
car
it
smell,
is.
only better. I'm going to
Agreed.
confess,
Okay.
when I got my first copy of my board game, the first thing I
Yeah.
did was open it up and sniff it.
Well, yeah. Isn't that what everyone does?
I
know?
sniff board games.
Guys, make sure to comment below when this airs and tell us if you like to. When you open a board game, do you like to sniff? I certainly do. That fresh cardboard. Oh my
And
gosh.
if you can combine it with a good box fart. Thank you. If you can combine it with a good box fart, and then a good sniff. Oh yeah. Fart and sniff. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a special kind of magic
To the fart and sniff.
So one of the things the other thing I noticed about some of the components in your game is the use of acrylic instead of cardboard. Speaking of cardboard, standees. Was that a DeVere design thing? Was that a design choice by you? Was that a cooperative decision?
I put stands in my game rather
Yeah.
than anything else because I wanted you to be able to see the art. You know, just the
Yes.
art of, so to put you in the mind of what the 70s looked like. And because I like seeing artwork for characters. And so I had cardboard standees fit in plastic bases in the prototype. And DeVere decided to do it in acrylic. And that was such a great, or maybe Maple Foundry did. I'm not sure who made the decision. And it looks amazing. And if you're
Yes.
buying the game, you just have to remember that every acrylic piece in the game is covered by a little protective film.
Yes.
So if you want those characters and the bases and everything else that's acrylic to really shine and look amazing, you got to peel that film off.
You got to peel the film. Got to peel the film.
I was sitting there when they were going into the semifinal tables at the World Series because they open the boxes right there so that there's nobody can cheat at all.
Right.
So they had to punch everything and organize everything on the spot, which is why everything went so late. So I was there and I'm like, I'm the designer. I really shouldn't be touching much. It's just like, give me all your characters, though. I'm going to peel the acrylic film off.
Peel the film. Yes.
That was what I did.
So are you familiar with the game Mystic Vale?
Of course.
Right.
I do design days at John DeClaire's house.
Oh, that's amazing. I had not known that. That's
I love
great.
John. About once every couple of months, he holds a game design and play testing session at his house.
Oh, that's cool.
Designers from all over Southern California go and hang out and play games.
Man, that's a dream.
Yeah,
so I bring it up because I was thinking about peeling the film. We have all the content, including the big box. It's one of my wife's like top 3, maybe top 5 favorite games of all time, right? And we've had it for years, and every time we play, she still finds cards that you got to peel the film off. So that's what she's doing when it's not her turn. She's peeling the film. She just
There's
gets some satisfaction from that.
there is something very, for me, relaxing about organizing board games, about peeling off film,
Yep.
sleeving cards. It's kind of like when the world gets really overwhelming, here's
Mm.
this little world that we can impose some organization on.
Yeah.
I know
Yes.
we're weird. Board
No,
gamers
no.
are,
Board gamers. Yes.
I wouldn't say we're weird. I think it's a perfectly normal and wonderful thing to do, but
I agree.
we have our little things like people who don't play board games would never understand this.
No,
But
they
I
would
mean, how
never
many
understand.
I mean, I will periodically reorganize my board game shelves, and it's the same thing. It's like I get to impose order, right?
So, yeah. So, my wife and I are in our professional lives, we're both archivists. So, we're always about describing and arranging records. And in this case, I think about our board game collection constantly. And I want to reorganize. And I'm like, but I can think of because unlike our work life, there are no best practices that I can
Right.
apply. There are no standards. It's just whatever feels good to you. And I'm like, well, I could organize them by publisher. I could organize them by color. I can organize them by size. Oh my God. And then my brain just kind of goes crazy. And I'm like, I need to record another episode.
For what it's worth, I went color,
That's
and then what
perfectly
fits,
legit. Perfectly
right? To
legit.
to maximize the space.
Yep. I think for me, it's about size. It's about using the space well, simply because, we both have a commitment to play every game in our collection a minimum of once every calendar year. And that
That's a
helps us
good goal.
yeah. And we're at 81.6% of our collection played so far this year. So we don't have much farther to go. To be fair, we only have 300 games, right? With 300, it's kind of where we keep it.
I'm impressed. My game groups in Los Angeles tend to be very much cult of the new.
Yep.
So we have a lot of people that back Kickstarters.
Yep.
There are a couple of content creators. So between us, we have a lot of new games, and we
Yeah.
tend not to go back to old ones, which I kind of find frustrating because I
Yes.
never get good at particular games. And there are games that I very much would like to play enough to get good at. But, in your fantasy, your game group enjoys exactly the games that you do, or a pretty good overlap. And in
Right.
practice, we don't at all.
Yep.
So there's this tiny little slice of the Venn diagram.
Yes.
And we keep trying new games to see what fits in there. And you don't want to end up where people are just kind of like, yeah, we can play that one. I won't veto it, but nobody's excited. So we keep looking for that game that we're going to get excited about. And the closest we've found, I think, as a group is Darwin's Journey.
It's a good one.
It's a really good game.
Journey that's such a great game.
I lose every time we play.
I don't lose every time, but most of the time. And that's simply because my wife is smarter than I am. It's such in fact, I did an entire episode just dedicated on Darwin's Journey, probably about 2 years ago, because it's just such a great game and great experience. What games, so I know you said that when you decided to make a game, you were talking about the experience. Were there any board games that inspired you in your process of creating Rock Ride?
Yeah. Abomination Era Frankenstein was a big one.
Yeah?
Because I wanted that game just when I saw the artwork and the theme on it, and I went, oh, this is dark. I have to get this. Right. And it's an event game, right? It's not the game you're going to pull down from the shelf every week and want to play it, because it does require some setup time. Yep. The one valid criticism is it does run a little long. There is now a designer-approved shorter variant, which I have not learned yet.
Okay.
But you are you're playing a mad scientist trying to create a partner for Frankenstein's monster. So you're trying to collect body parts and get enough of them together to animate it and bring it to life. And ideally, you want to get fresh body parts from the morgue.
Of course.
In a pinch, you might go dig up a grave, but those aren't the best body parts. If you really get desperate, you can go out into the alley and, you use some animal parts. It's a little twisted, but it's very I love Gothic horror.
Sure.
I mean, who doesn't? So it
Some
was
people.
when I played that, it was kind of that feeling where you're doing the Euro things, but
Right.
then you've got this very Ameritrash, excuse the expression, moment where you're
Sure.
trying to bring your monster to life, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And I love these games like that, and since then, like Distilled, where
Mm.
you have a little bit of that excitement layered over the Euro.
Hmm.
So it's pure Eurogamers tend to have an issue with that. But I do want that experience. Am I going to
Right.
get my these parts to life? Am I going to do I have enough ingredients in this vat that I'm going to be able to distill the liquor that I want?
Yeah.
You know, am I going to push my luck consuming candy to get
Uh-huh.
extra actions? Am I going to have a sugar crash and have to spend my next daytime action recovering?
Right.
So there's a little bit of that. What's going to happen that I think I enjoy in the game?
Yes. That's beautiful. I would never have put those two together, but that experience. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That's incredible. I never would imagine. I love it. That's awesome. So I got to ask, do you own or have you had a chance to play My Father's Work?
I wanted to play that right when it came out, and
Hmm.
we had set up a night to play it because a friend has it. And there was always somebody who couldn't make it on the particular day. So I have not played it.
Do it. Do it. It's Halloween's approaching. It's the perfect time to.
Yeah, I know. I am curious to see whether I'm going to like it because I tend to have issues with games that have a lot of story
Hmm.
that can be randomized. So we'll see. There might be a very specific story that emerges, and I will be happy with that.
There is so there's three boxes, right? So there's three kind of narratives going on. So you choose one box to play, and then each box has 8 unique endings, so that there's a total of 24 different narratives that you can play through based on the choices you make. But it's really beautifully done. The theme is fantastic. Um, I'm normally not an app driven gamer. I'm not a fan of app driven games where it's dependent upon an app.
Yeah.
And it had some problems in the beginning. Thankfully, as the years have gone on, they've since fixed all that, but it's worth checking out. You could play that solo. You could play that with 2. You could play it with 3, or you could play
I'm
it with
going to
4.
see
Yeah.
if I can get that set up with the person who has it, because
Yeah.
it was very high on my list when it came out, and it's sort of I don't want to say the desire to play has fallen by the wayside, but this is
Right.
there's so many great games that come out
There are.
every year because there are also so many mediocre games that come out every year. There's just people trying to create, get that content out
Right.
and honestly, not doing enough play testing.
Right.
What it comes down to is that when you have a great design and you have mechanisms that work with the theme, you still have to play test, play test, play test. And that is really the key to coming up with a great game. And there is
Yes.
no short circuiting that.
It sounds like you had a good group that you could, like, initially when you were creating Rock Hard, that you had a group of playtesters ready to go early on, it sounds like.
Well, first playtest was with my most regular gaming group. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure who was more nervous, them or me. But I had play tested it over, I didn't do anything right at the beginning of this game, to tell you the truth. Because you're supposed to get your play tests out early for
Yeah.
proof of concept, even if the game breaks down. And I wanted to make sure that for my gaming group, I didn't give them a game that was going to break. So
Mhm.
I played it over and over, just myself at every different player count. And then when I was confident that they were going to be able to get a whole game in, put it before them. And then they were all very surprised, I think, because I don't think they expected that much. And they actually had a really good time.
Yeah.
And then they made some suggestions. I tweaked it. I mean, the hardest part was that I never got to take shop when I was growing up in school because I was a
Yeah.
girl.
Mm.
I'd say, I want to take
Yeah.
shop. And they would say, well, no, you're a girl. You can't take shop. Take
Right.
chemistry, whatever. So I don't do well making things with my hands. And I knew I wanted certain things in the game. So just even learning how to prototype a board, I'm also very verbal. I'm somebody that doesn't do well with a lot of icons. Like one game that
Right.
has come out this year, that all my friends love and that I thought I was going to be absolutely crazy about is Galactic Cruise. And I probably would be if I sat down and could really learn the icons. But I sit down to play and I'm just like, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? I do not learn icons easily. And that has a lot of them. So for me, my original board was all words. And for people who don't do words well, it was a hot mess. And I finally was so frustrated trying to convert that to visual language. I think I went onto Twitter and I said, I hate prototyping so much. I'm thinking of not designing games. And Jeff Engelstein, who is a very good game designer, offered to help me with it.
Awesome.
Just kind of out of nowhere. And he gave me a sound, like literally did it with me on a Zoom with him, just banged it out. And it wasn't exactly usable the way he did it, but I see this now. Yeah. And then I went and created the board that I ultimately sold to a publisher. So it's that we have different board gaming language. And
yes,
in an ideal world, you have a game that you can put both words and icons on.
Right.
So that people who process information visually versus people who are more verbal can both play the game. And there's not always room to do that, unfortunately.
So as a designer, you were talking about how many, there's so many games coming out. So as a designer with other game ideas that you would like to put together, potentially publish going forward in the future, what is your take on the sheer number of games that are coming out every year? Do you think it's just enough? Do you think we're oversaturated? Do you think that the industry's at risk, or just all the other things that are going on? What do you think about?
I don't think the industry's at risk. I think it's kind of like with that you look at like television, right? You have so many possibilities. A few shows are going to float to the top. They'll somehow break through the noise. It's a little bit arbitrary. They're all going to be good ones. A lot of good ones get lost and unfortunately don't get the backing that they probably deserve. I think it's the same with board games right now.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of content, just a lot. Now, tariffs are going to take that down for the next year or so. So there weren't as many hotly anticipated titles this past Gen Con as there were in 2024, for instance. And I don't know whether we'll recover.
I definitely noticed that.
Yeah. So it's going to take a couple of years, I think, to completely recover. And you're going to see designers pivoting to less component heavy games that can maybe be produced in the US or in Europe. But the problem is that just production capacity for making games does reside mostly in China.
Yes.
There's not enough money in board games to have it make financial sense to create that infrastructure in the US, even if we wanted to. China is just uniquely set up to crank out certain types of products. So, for instance, I have a lot of alcohol ink markers, and you start to see after a while that at the lower end of the market, there is somewhere in China, there are a couple of companies that make the shells, the actual plastic parts of the pens themselves. There are other companies that make ink, and they work together to fill orders. So you go to one that makes the shell and you have your brand name printed on them, and then you order the ink from somewhere and they combine them. And after a while, you start to see these two companies get their ink from the same place because they're the same colors. And these two get their shells from the same place because they're the same shape. And you get a preference on the lower end side. And it's like we talk about bringing manufacturing to the US, but
we do.
It's not something that makes sense in every industry.
Right. Absolutely. So talking about color. So there seems to be, if you look at Rock Hard, if you open up the box, and you even see this a little bit if you look at the color insert from Folded Space. The one color that stands out is the color red.
Yes.
Was that a design choice by you, or is that just a kind of?
Well, I had a lot of conversations with DeVere about the color scheme because I wanted it to be colors that are associated with the 70s. Now, to take somebody who wasn't really alive in the 70s and explain the difference between 1972 and 1977 is really challenging. So a lot of the game looks more 1967 than 1977.
Okay.
I can point, like I'm just looking at the cover behind you.
Yep.
So let's just talk. Pants in 1977 were actually pretty high rise. Those low rise pants went out in the early 70s. I noticed this, but I mean, the artist is, I'm be shocked if she's 30 years old. She's really young.
Sure.
So she's got if you look at there are a lot of people with facial hair in that audience.
Right.
Facial hair was pretty much gone in the late 70s. So we're just going to say these people were fans in the 60s and never updated their wardrobe. But the shirt you might kind of recognize, because the shirt on the cover is modeled on a shirt famously worn by Robert Plant, who allegedly
my gosh.
I don't know if this is true.
Okay.
This is might be an urban legend.
All right.
That Robert Plant's stage shirts were women's shirts, and it was that he took from whoever he had been with the night before.
That is super interesting.
So that's why. So hence the reason the shirts were never buttoned. They're too small. The things you learn when you.
But I mean, not even just the cover. It's like, even though all the player mats, right? The player characters they have their own color scheme. Yes, that's true. But it seems like the color red just kind of, if one could say, is playing Rock Hard 1977, you just feel the color red.
I think because that wasn't my decision. The coloring on the board, although I wanted it slightly different, but the idea was here 70s colors, and three of the colors that were really big in the 70s and really the 60s that I grew up with were avocado green, harvest gold, and I forget what they called the kind of orange color. But as one of the other publishers that had the game before DeVere said, it doesn't really matter if it's exactly right from the 70s. It's what people think the 70s look like.
Sure.
So then there is a modern movement. Like, you'll notice new games, green is usually not a player color anymore.
I've been noticing that, even though green is like everybody's, like, their favorite player color, except for mine. But,
I play red. So, I used to play. I used to play any color, and then when the pandemic hit and we were all playing on Board Game Arena, it has you pick your favorite color.
Right.
And in our group, we just settled into these particular roles. So I'm the red player.
Sure. Okay.
And if I sit down and I play with somebody else who plays red, and I'm always nice, and I say, okay, you go ahead playing red, I'll play whatever. But I will get confused and try to move the other person's pieces.
I do this if someone is playing purple and it's not me. I'm like, oh, oops.
But so some of that is for visually impaired people with color blindness to take the tones away. Although the problem is that then you back into visual acuity. So as being someone older, where our color contrast goes off a little bit, I sometimes have trouble distinguishing in low light between red and orange. Or red and pink, but I never have trouble distinguishing when it's kitty lunchtime. This is Peanut. Peanut helps me greatly with game design, because she'll just go onto the table and she'll swat components off, and she'll go, yeah, too many components, you don't need that.
I love it. So I was thinking about you. So you're early on, you're designing.
Rubs. She likes belly rubs.
What cat doesn't, right? Our cats love belly rubs. So you're designing Rock Hard, and at some point you've got a decision to make. Do you self-publish through Kickstarter or some sort of a...
That wasn't ever a decision.
Ever a decision?
No, I am not an organized person.
Okay. So then, based upon that, what advice would you give to someone who is in that situation? They're designing their first game and they're debating, do I give up all the control to a publisher, or do I publish myself on Kickstarter? Because that's a conversation I have a lot with designers. Well, and I love that you're very definitive, and I would love to hear your thoughts about that.
If you're going to do a Kickstarter, you really need to be able to commit to running that Kickstarter, to running interference if there are issues with fulfillment, it's a lot of work that isn't game design. And you need to understand what that is. And I think if you're doing your first game and you're doing the Kickstarter or the game found on it, you may be in over your head. I honestly would do the first one with a publisher so that you can see what goes into the process. But you got to remember that you're going to have a contract for your game. And so in my contract, one of the things that was really important to me with Rock Hard, because I thought it was such an important selling point on the game, was to have the player boards be amplifiers. So it is literally in my contract that the player boards must be amplifiers with knobs that you can turn.
That's
because
interesting.
that was, I don't want to tell you too much of what is in my contract because
Sure.
I think that's not fair to DeVere,
Sure.
but I will say that you have some control. If there is an element or an aspect of your game that is for you, the hill you're willing to die on, you got to put it in the contract. And you're not powerless. You don't just have to sign the contract that the company puts in front of you. You can negotiate things because really it is a partnership. And you decide if I want this very much to be my game and I'm afraid, then I'm going to negotiate approvals into the contract, or I'm going to go take on the responsibilities of running a crowdfunding campaign, overseeing fulfillment. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you're like, I designed this cool game here. You guys take it, do whatever you want with it. Like I'm kind of there with the next game that will probably get published is just really fun. It's less personal to me. Hey, you guys want to make changes? Make changes. I don't have the same investment in it being a particular way. So it depends.
Well, thank you for that. I think that that's a unique perspective that I have not heard anyone share before. And I'm sure I've got first-time designers listening who would at least appreciate that. Because I know that's a conversation I have, I had that conversation with so many designers, and it's like, why did you? And then the other one is, why did you choose Kickstarter over GameFound or some other guy? Like, I am not a designer. I never will be a designer because I have too many ideas and not enough. So it's not a decision I would have to make.
When you go, we go to conventions because it's a lot of fun and we want to see what's out there. But the other thing is, if you're a designer, you want to go and meet publishers. You want to talk to them because they'll start helping you with things and they'll look out for you and they'll remember you. And every single time you're interacting with a designer, make it a good interaction. Don't be remembered for the wrong reason. Have a smile on your face, understand that they're primarily at a convention to sell. Don't interrupt their sales, but be polite. Talk to the person you need to talk to, introduce yourself, be prepared. If you are pitching, set up your meetings in advance if you can, because you'll know that it's somebody who's receptive to what you've got. And there are a lot of things that you need to do in order to do that. There's a ton of really good advice on the internet about how to do that. But even if you're not selling a particular game, just going to meeting people.
Yeah. That's great.
Remember I said the cat was going to chew on something?
Sure.
On cords?
She's chewing on the cord.
She's chewing on the cords.
Yep, that's normal.
Let me see. My cat.
She's wonderful. Absolutely.
She'll pull my phone onto the floor. She pushes water glasses onto the floor. It's like, oh, broken glass gets mom's attention.
Spilled water. Yeah.
One more. Oh, broken glass. Yeah.
That's the worst. That's why we have lids on our water cups now.
Yeah.
It's like we drink sippy cups so that the cats can't spill all of our beverages.
Turned on the stove one day.
Really? That's crazy.
Yeah. Fortunately, I was sitting here and I heard the click, click, click of a gas stove starting and ran out before she could bring out the gas company. And now I've got child-proof caps.
Yep. So meeting people at conventions. It's all about those relationships.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things is, for me, it is really important to have diversity in board games and inclusivity. So it's when I was playtesting Rock Hard, I happened to notice this, and it's like an unconscious thing. So first playtest, I had a playtester of Asian descent, and she immediately ran and gravitated toward Kimmy Kim, my gay neighbor who I brought in as the the very casual gamer just to see
Right.
if he could pick it up. Gamer came in and immediately went to one of the androgynous characters. It was like you kind of want to, when you're starting out gaming, play yourself or see yourself
Right.
in the game. Is really good about making their games inclusive, and they are willing to do games on unusual themes. So
Yes.
they've done, circuses in early 20th century America. They've done, they did Jerusalem,
Yeah.
and where you're trying to get close to Jesus at the Last Supper.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, you're trying to complete Mozart's last work. I went, they're going to get this theme. And that also, as it turns out, they're rockers. So it ended up being a really perfect company. But the thing that finally sold me on them was the player boards in Lacrimosa. So I don't know if you've played Lacrimosa.
I have it behind me. It
They
is
are
fantastic.
stunning.
Yes.
It's a stunning production. And I went, they will do these amplifier player boards justice.
Yep.
And they're not going to be put off by a theme that isn't, space or nature and all this stuff that's kind of proven to be successful over and over and over. They'll do interesting things. They'll take a risk on first-time designers. And so it ended up being a really good match.
So
and they got the thing.
So there you go. Do your homework, do your research, have a good pitch, and don't be known for, you said it beautifully earlier, don't be known for the, like, it had something to do with being, it was a negative.
Every interaction that you have with a publisher, no matter how casual, just should be a positive one for them.
Right.
They may not remember you, but they're somewhere in their brain. They're going to start associating positive things with interacting with you. And it's really important because there may come a time during the design process where you are going to have an unpopular opinion that you want to fight for. My first conversation with David Esbury, who runs DeVere, because when we were negotiating the contract, and I said, can we just agree that our relationship for negotiating contract things is completely separate from our working together on the design of the game? I said, because I'm coming from a world where I negotiate and I am going to be a little bit demanding on my own behalf because that's what I did for a living. Right. And then when I'm a designer, I will work with you and be really cooperative. And so David understood what he was getting into with me and didn't mind when I asked for things. And if they weren't going to do it, he just said no. It's a dialogue.
Right.
So as long as you are polite about it and you're trying to find solutions, the company is not going to get mad that you ask for something. And you just have to know what is it you must have and you're willing to walk away from the negotiating table if you don't get it. And I had 3 things that were important enough to me to be put in the contract. They were smaller things that DeVere does anyway, and we're happy to say yes to. And then I had a conversation with them. I said, I don't want AI art. And I actually asked for it in the contract. And they said, well, we won't put it in the contract, but you should know we never use it. And they didn't. And they hired Jenny to do the artwork. We discussed art styles. They found, I sent them some artists whose work I liked, and they didn't care for it exactly. They proposed somebody to me. I think he's got a really unique perspective on things, but I didn't think he was right for Rock Hard. Mm-hmm. So they found 4 other artists, and this had been after some back and forth, and they just said, here, you get to veto 2 of them. So I vetoed 2 of them, and of the 2 that were left, they picked Jenny.
Excellent. Well, she did great work because
she did amazing work.
Fantastic.
And she's such a nice person. I'm so honored to have created these. When I only had one conversation with her, which was a funny conversation because she doesn't really speak English. I kind of remember a few phrases of Spanish. I remember I said to her, "Más grande de la vida," like that was larger than life. And I said, "Más sucia," which is dirtier, not in a sexually dirty manner, but just literally
like
dirtier.
Grittier,
yeah, grungy.
Right? Yeah,
But I don't want to say, I know how to say grungy, but those were that's all I said to her in Spanish. But through a translator, I said, these are our children. There's going to be some of me in it and some of you, and that's okay. So I did bios for her and a little summary that maybe somebody translated into Spanish. so she would know kind of who the characters are. And then after she did them, I had to change those bios slightly to match her artwork, and that was fine too.
Well, I think you came up with a masterpiece together. I'm thankful. I love playing every time it hits the table. Jackie, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your advice and input, sharing with my listeners. People on the socials, where people can find you if they want to talk to you more about your game or just anything in general.
You can find me on Facebook, Jackie Fox 1976, go
Okay.
figure. And I'm on Instagram. Well, this one's going to be harder. I think you can just search for Jackie Fox because it's easier than remembering Foxy. It was created as a lurker account. So never
Okay.
planned on having any kind of social media presence.
And now you're everywhere.
I am everywhere. Look, you're gonna come up with 2 Jackie Foxes on socials, and one's gonna be an Irish reporter.
That's true.
That's the other Jackie Fox.
Well, thank you once again. And guys, please remember to hit the like and subscribe button. And we're just going to keep pushing forward. I've got a new series that I've been working on that's going to be coming out here just before Halloween. So be on the lookout for that. And as always, be kind to one another and play more games.
Hard agree.